One sports writer described him as the Gulliver among the Lilliputians, a King Kong sitting atop the Empire State Building, not swatting down airplanes, but basketballs. He had an intimidating appearance, but Artis Gilmore was in reality a gentle giant who rarely showed anger or emotion on the court. Although he was chastised by coaches and fans who wanted him to show more fire, his production was always at an elite level. Whether as a scorer, rebounder, or shot blocker, opposing teams would find him to be the unstoppable. Artis Gilmore was born September 21, 1949, in the small town of Chipley, Florida, the second oldest of 8 children. His father was a retired landscape worker who stood at 5'5", while Artis's mother was 6'4". "We were poor, but lived happily," Gilmore said. But he was growing so fast that his parents had to send him to work at age 10 so that he would have clothes to wear. "I did anything anyone wanted me to," Gilmore said. "In the summer, I would go to New York and wash dishes to make money. You see, I couldn't get clothes that fit anywhere but in New York." Gilmore grew to be 6'5" by his high school freshman year and initially wanted to play football, but his parents couldn't afford insurance. There wasn't an indoor gym at his school, so basketball was played solely on concrete. "I was uncoordinated and couldn't play the game," Gilmore said. "The coach asked me to come out. I don't think he knew that much about basketball, and he couldn't really help me." Encouraged to go to basketball camp the following summer, Gilmore had to work instead, getting a job loading watermelons to help his family with the bills. By his senior year, Gilmore had grown to be 7'1". His family would move to Dothan, Alabama, where he would enroll at Carver High School. Gilmore had never attended an integrated school before, or had even associated much with the white community. He entered the school, feeling anxious. "I realized at Carver how little I really knew," Gilmore said, "and that I wanted to make something of myself in basketball." Gilmore became the star player of the team. His eye-popping stats garnered attention from recruiters across the nation, but he settled on a small Christian college in Boiling Springs, North Carolina, called Gardner-Webb. The soft-spoken young man wanted a quiet place, and the small college fit his criteria. The school's basketball coach, Eddie Holbrook, included a 7'6" bed for Gilmore, which helped seal the deal. "I've always slept on a regular-sized bed," Gilmore said, "at an X-like angle so my feet wouldn't hang off the end." Growing to a height of 7 feet and 2 inches and weighing 240 pounds, Gilmore enrolled for 2 years at Gardner-Webb. But the special bed and mattresses weren't the only special orders he needed. He had to get his clothes through a specialty store in Philadelphia. For shoes, a special order was made through a local sporting goods store as they didn't carry a size 16.5. When the team would travel, they would often make a T out of 2 beds to accommodate him. Still, Gilmore just wanted to be a regular guy. He enjoyed pencil drawings, ping pong, dancing, and soul music. The louder the better. He also joined the nearby Green Bethel Baptist Church. But wherever he went, he was gawked at because of his size. "Too many people look at me as if I was just a basketball player," Gilmore said. "I want them to think of me as a human being." Holbrook saw Gilmore as still a basketball novice. He put him on a 2-year crash course in the fundamentals of the game while helping him bulk up physically with meals of 2 steaks and a half-gallon of milk. He became an unbelievable shot blocker, Holbrook said. He had the ability to keep the ball in bounds and not just swat it into the stands. Personality-wise, Gilmore remained easygoing, and his coach would often pinch and at one time slap the young player to try and motivate him. But the prodding didn't seem to be necessary, and looking at the stats, as Gilmore averaged 24 points and 18 rebounds a game. "He has as much God-given talent as Alcindor," Coach Holbrook said, "but he's still what you'd call a diamond in the rough. He'll look like a pro for 10 minutes, then you won't see him do a thing for the next 10. Gardner-Webb was a 2-year school, and Gilmore needed the platform of a 4-year school if he wanted to turn pro. If his NBA hoop dreams didn't come true, his backup plan was to go into elementary education. Gilmore wanted out of Boiling Springs, knowing that a larger world was out there, waiting. "This is such a small town," Gilmore said. "I know it's never bothered me before because I knew everyone in Chipley. But there are only 5 Negro girls in school, and that limits your social life, and a friend and I have been considering going someplace else ever since we were turned away from a restaurant in South Carolina on a road trip." Gilmore transferred to Jacksonville University, where he would play under Coach Joe Williams. Williams became one of the few white men Gilmore trusted, having the player over to dinner and his children's birthday parties. On the court, Gilmore would average 24.3 points and 22.7 rebounds a game, leading the nation in both of his years at Jacksonville. In his final year, he and his teammate Rex Morgan were nicknamed Batman and Robin, becoming the Cinderella story in the NCAA tournament, where they would make it all the way to the national championship game to play against the legendary John Wooden and the UCLA Bruins. Gilmore would go heads up against UCLA's 6'8" jumping jack forward, Sidney Wicks, who would block 5 of his shots, a new experience for Gilmore. He would be limited to 19 points as his team lost 80-69 against the Bruins. Wicks would later admit that if the rules for allowing dunks remained, Gilmore would have, quote, "killed us." Still, the night of being outplayed by Sidney Wicks left a long impression on Gilmore. "It was a nightmare," Gilmore said. "Every time I had pretty much forgotten about it, some little kid would come up behind me and shout, 'Sidney Wicks,' as if it's supposed to scare me or something. That game was probably the worst I've ever played." Turning pro, Gilmore was expected to be picked up by the lowly Cleveland Cavaliers, who were an expansion team with a previous year record of 15-67. But a week before the draft, Gilmore opted for the ABA over the NBA as he received a 10-year, $2.5 million contract from the Kentucky Colonels, which may have been the most lucrative in all of sports at the time. Gilmore would treat himself to a Cadillac and get his father a new pickup truck. "I've always looked forward to having something," Gilmore said. "I thought it would change my life, but it hasn't. I'm still the same." He would also buy his parents a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in a nice neighborhood in Panama City, Florida. Entering the ABA, fans of opposing teams would not take kindly to the 7'2" giant with the 3-inch afro. They would call him goon and scream at him to get a haircut. As his reputation grew, so did the amount of people who approached him in public. He would often be asked how tall he was, and he would always answer 6'5". More often than not, the stranger would be so impressed by his size that they wouldn't process the wrongness of his answer. Some people would pretend to know him on sight, asking, "Aren't you, what's his name, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?" "No," Artis would reply. "My name is Howard Jenkins." Gilmore would give false answers because sometimes he didn't feel like talking, and if he told them the truth, they'd ask 10 more questions. Gilmore also thought faking it was fun, and he hated being rude. When a woman asked him if he played basketball for a living, Gilmore replied, "No, I wash giraffe ears." Meanwhile, on the court, Gilmore was now given free rein in the ABA, a league which allowed and encouraged the slam dunk. In his rookie season, Gilmore would win the Rookie of the Year and League MVP award, both over Julius Erving, as he averaged 23.8 points and 17.8 rebounds per game. When he holds the ball away from his opponent, columnist Buddy Martin wrote, "It is almost like an adult playing with children." In 1973, Gilmore would lead the Colonels to the ABA Finals but would lose to the Indiana Pacers. 2 years later, the Colonels would win the ABA championship, this time defeating the Pacers, with Gilmore averaging 25 points and 21 rebounds in the series. "It's like biting into something delicious," Gilmore said. "You just don't want to stop eating and eating." The championship win silenced Gilmore's critics, at least temporarily. He was pegged as someone who could never play on a championship team because he was too nice. "Some writers started calling me Gentle Ben," Gilmore said. But his tenure wouldn't be without physical confrontation, as the normally even-tempered Gilmore would lose his cool 3 times during his ABA career until a right cross by Maurice Lucas dropped him to his knees. I regret that it happened, Gilmore mumbled with a fat upper lip. I don't want to talk about the fight. I just lost one, that's all. The ABA disbanded prior to the 1976-77 season, and the Kentucky Colonels folded. Gilmore was sent to the NBA Chicago Bulls, who had shrewdly drafted him in the 7th round in the 1971 draft, thereby securing his rights. An all-star during all 5 years of his tenure in the ABA, Gilmore was thought to be the talent that would lead the Bulls to their promised land. I want to be the greatest player who ever played the game, Gilmore said. I don't know if I'll ever reach that objective, but I'm not fair to myself or my team if I don't point in that direction. 16 games into his first season, the Bulls had only won 2. Gilmore was now longing for his winning days with the Kentucky Colonels. It was tough, very tough, Gilmore said. I really didn't get much respect from within the team. My own teammates just didn't have the respect for what I could do. Reporters didn't give him all that much respect either. Columnist Robert Marcus wrote, quote, "Watching Artis Gilmore play basketball is a little like being served apple pie when you ordered cherry. It may be very good, but it's not what you thought you were getting." The Bulls continued to lose, and Gilmore was made the scapegoat. His impassive nature made the fans and sports writers crazy. Fans in Chicago were making jokes that when the firing squad executed killer Gary Gilmore, they shot the wrong Gilmore. Gilmore himself never complained. "If you get too emotionally involved with what's going on around you," Gilmore said, "you won't do your job." He remained an Ironman in Chicago just like he was in Kentucky, not missing a game and averaging 40 minutes per outing. "There were many times when I was sick," Gilmore said, "but I still went out there and gave it my best effort. Maybe that effort didn't satisfy the coaches that I was trying my hardest, but they weren't the ones I was trying to satisfy. I wanted to satisfy myself." The Bulls coaching staff eventually realized that Gilmore needed the ball more. He would have his best NBA year in the 1978-79 season, averaging 23.7 points per game, and he would become an all-star in 4 of his 6 full seasons with the Bulls. But he would suffer a knee injury in the 4th game of the 1979-80 season, ending what was a long streak of consecutive playing appearances for both the now-defunct Colonels and the Bulls. It was thought that the knee surgery he underwent could possibly end his career. Gilmore was given the option of sitting out the season to work out on his own to strengthen the knee, but he insisted on coming back and working himself into shape. "Would I still be able to run up and down the floor, rebound and jump?" Gilmore asked. "You see, had I not come back, that would have been lingering in my mind during the off-season." Gilmore played 48 games that year, but the Bulls had another dismal season. Despite his bravery in coming back, he was blamed for what some perceived to be his lack of intensity. "I work very hard," Gilmore said. "That is the same sort of thing they say about Kareem. They say he's too passive, that he doesn't look like he's working hard. There's some players who are the types who dive across the floor to get loose balls, that sort of thing. But when the game is over, they don't have any stats. Only the player and the coach know what the individual means to the team." Despite his glossy stats, the fans were disgusted with the performance of the Bulls. They often cheered when the PA announcer would declare that only 2 minutes remained in yet another losing game. Gilmore would be traded before the start of the 1982-83 season to the San Antonio Spurs. The sports writers in San Antonio weren't any kinder to Gilmore than those in Chicago. "Gilmore is 32 years old," one reporter wrote, "and he plays much older." But now teamed with George the Iceman Gervin, the duo would lead the team to a first-place division finish in the 1982-83 season. They would make it into the Western Conference Finals, where they would lose to the Lakers in 6 games despite a 27-point, 20-rebound, and 5-block effort by Gilmore in Game 2. The Spurs would make the playoffs with Gilmore twice more, but never make it out of the first round. By 1985, he was trying to shake the loser image, as even though he won the ABA championship with the Colonels, he really didn't come close in all the years since. "People see me as a loser," Gilmore said. "There isn't anything that will change that. Nobody likes Goliath. I think I've had a tremendous career, but people don't notice." Gilmore would then rejoin the Bulls for part of the 1988 season. The Bulls reacquired him on draft day in exchange for a second-round draft pick, hoping that his rejuvenation in San Antonio would carry over, a gamble that the legs and stamina of the now 38-year-old could still be effective. The gamble didn't pay off, as the homecoming celebration soon turned into a sad farewell. 20 games in, Gilmore only averaged 4.2 and 2.6 rebounds while playing 15 minutes a game. He had difficulty keeping up with players who were now 10 and 15 years younger. After the team suffered a 3-game losing streak, Gilmore was given a choice of being released or retiring with an Artis Gilmore night in Chicago. He chose to leave without the pomp and circumstance. "If I had been on top for the past 5 years, I think I might want the fanfare when I retired, but I haven't been," Gilmore said. "The fans don't owe me any goodbyes. I'll just fade away." The Bulls released him, and he was then picked up by the Celtics, finishing his NBA career with the team. A stint in the Italian League followed, where he averaged 12 points and 11 rebounds before calling it quits on his basketball career. In April of 2011, Gilmore was elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame. "I feel a man should have only one goal, and that is to be the very best," Gilmore said. "But I don't believe in personal goals, isolated goals which relate to a game or a season. If you do that, and you accomplish those goals, then I feel you lose some of your incentive. If you reach the top of the mountain, there's no place else to go. So you set your sights on the highest mountain and hope someday you'll reach it."
very seldom go with Walton and Van Leer together. As a matter of fact, I've never seen it happen. And obviously, they want to move the club as much as they can. But look at the big guy.
He's foul of the active shooting. Gilmore down low, triple team, puts it off glass, basket goes.